Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is my eyeshadow palette collection for 2024. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. As promised, I would be ending eyeshadow palette month with my entire eyeshadow palette collection. So that's what I have going on for you here. I've been ill all week, so if I sound a bit raspy or out of breath, that's why, but I didn't want to leave you guys hanging and not film this video for you this year. In case you're unaware, I'm still hosting a giveaway where I've asked you to show me your eyeshadow palette collections, and I will be doing a video with those images that have been handed in the next week or so, but I thought it would also be fair to just show you mine. So let's just dig in because I've got 2 drawers to get through. Before we get into the video, I would like to point out that this eyeshadow palette collection didn't happen overnight. This is a process of years. I've been an eyeshadow palette aficionado for some time now, and I just buy a couple of new palettes every single year, and this is how the collection grew and grew. I will be showing you things that are in makeup memory boxes as well, because not all of the palettes you're going to be seeing are still part of what I still put on my eyes. Like, you're going to see the original Naked One palette from Urban Decay from 2010. I still have that, but it's more like a relic by now, but it's still in my house. So I always show you everything in this video once a year. I show you all the eyeshadow palettes that are currently in my possession. My estimation is that there are like 300 of these. Remember, I have a YouTube channel. I try to go back to things. I really do try to make an effort of using all of these things. And I feature also the older stuff in videos regularly, which is why I still have so many palettes. This collection isn't here for me to use it on my eyes. It's here to also show you the things I love or used to love, and to compare formulas and to do all that. And that's definitely what my content is about, and that's why I still have this much stuff. I already mentioned there's going to be 2 drawers. You're currently looking at most of what's on offer in drawer number 1, which is where I keep like smaller palettes and more affordable things for the most part. So it's like tiny palettes and also drugstore and affordable brands, you could say. So let's just dive in. I'm gonna have to make some room here in the middle so I can show you everything, but this way I felt we could have a bit of an overview. So first things first is this little cubby with more affordable brands. I like to keep them together in these IKEA organizers. I film a video where I show you how I organize my makeup collection every year after I declutter, so I'll leave that linked in the description box if you want to know where things from and how things look like together in the drawer. And the first thing you'll probably notice here is that I have some Glam Light palettes here off to the side. And these Glam Light palettes are a recent discovery for me. I first tried this one, the Ghost Face palette, which is this gray toned one, which I really adore. And the one that had been on my wish list for some time, but that I wasn't sure of because it looks so dark, is the Chucky Crazy in Love. And I just think this is a gorgeous palette as well. Those are my vibe. And then the Friday the 13th Camp Crystal Lake is a little bit more jewel toned and has some more shimmer options. So those 3 were really nice. And then I also tried this year. This is the Glam Light Hershey's Cookies and Cream. And here's what that palette looks like, which is another one that I do really enjoy. Next up is another affordable brand. This is Beauty Bay. I tried the Metamorphic last year, which Beauty Bay doesn't make my favorite formula of eyeshadow, but I keep trying them because they do really stunning color stories. The Metamorphic was limited edition for Christmas last year, and in my September review, you will see me reviewing my Smoky palette. I also have the big guy, but this is just the baby one. Really nice, cool tones. I just really want to love Beauty Bay as much as everybody else does. Also in here are some of these travel palettes from BH. I have the Passion in Paris, which I love for how many blue tone purples we get. I'm not a huge fan of these berries. There's the Love in London. Because the sleeve is different, I keep it around. And this is just one of my favorite neutral palettes on the planet. This is such a beautiful one. Finally, the Blueberry Muffin, which is another one that I have. Not as blue as I want to, but it has some really unique shades, and I do like the looks I get out of this, which is why it gets to stay. The 2 Sweet Shop palettes I have from BH, this is of course really collectible because if you have them all together, it makes an ice cream cone. But I have the Pistachio, which is the green palette, and I have the Bubblegum, which is the blue palette. These are really, really pretty, really high quality. I love BH eyeshadow. Then we have the Be Perfect Gravity palette, which is a really good alternative to something like Makeup by Mario, Ethereal Eyes, or the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. If you want something darker, smokier, and more affordable, this is really, really nice quality, and I really enjoy the color story of this one. Also in here is the e.l.f. Earth and Ocean, which till this day is one of my favorite palettes by the brand. I really enjoy this color story with the blues and the greens, a really, really good high quality silver in there as well. Such a stunning one. And then I have Wycon in here as well. This is the Glam Eyes Coolest Shades eyeshadow palette. And I think this is absolutely stunning, really nice cool toned. It's very light. It has amazing shimmers. I just wish I got more crease shades. Which brings me to this whole array that you've got here. These are all of my Essence and Catrice eyeshadow palettes. Most of this has been discontinued though. And there's an entire stack here of limited edition palettes that I still have from a lot of the Disney collabs that they did that I tried. So let me just race you through these, because these are from my makeup memory box and I know you can no longer buy them. So I have the Disney Princess Jasmine palette from Essence. This is really pretty with the gray tones and then the purples with the pop of teal that actually worked. My issue with these was that it was never like the good quality that I know these brands can do. Catrice also did a Villains collection, from which I've kept the Ursula palette. So Cruella is another Disney Villains palette that Catrice did at some point. Really pretty with the gray tones and the red, but the quality was a bit meh. I have the Belle palette from a Catrice collection a while ago, with these blues and yellows. This Dumbo palette is one of the most unique color stories I've ever seen. It has light blue and like baby blue and yellows and these like gray tones. Really, really pretty. More Villains then from Essence. This is another Ursula palette, and this is like warmer tone purples for the most part. And then I have the Lady palette from Catrice. This is really, really pretty. Very good warm tones in here. Very nice and spicy, and I love this reddish tone here. And then we have the Essence Ariel palette. This was the first collection they ever did that I got my hands on. And this is really, really pretty. I love how this color story represents all the characters in the movie. These are all of the 5 in a box and 1 wow in a box. So this is the only one that stands out as being slightly different, I think. So the wow in a box is this peach tone. This is in Peach Perfect. And this is the last one they did in this range. And here are all the other ones. The first 4 that are here are the first 4 they came out with. I think this one, which is 010 Golden Nude Look, is still available in some places. This is one you can still buy. Really pretty, very good 5-pan neutral palette if that's what you're looking for. And these are super travel friendly, so that's why I still have them all. But this is the soft rose look. 030 was the spice look, which is far more warm tone and a little bit more orange. One of my favorites is 040 Modern Smoky Look. This one is in my active makeup collection still till this day, and I have a backup. Number 5 is the Blue Smoky Look. This quality-wise wasn't the best compared to the other 4. The Vivid Burgundy look came out at the same time and had the same issues as the Blue Smoky one, but this color story is really pretty. This pulled a little bit pink on me. 70 was the Cocky one, which wasn't all that cocky. It's more peach, and the Wow in a Box one they did later is almost identical to this. And then the final one they did in the 5 in a box is 080 Diamond Lavender Look, and this is another one that's in my active makeup collection because I love these grays with the purple. And I just have some random bits here from Essence. This one is in my active makeup collection. This is the Welcome to Cape Town. I've been singing the praises of this eyeshadow palette because I think it's that good. These two I still think are really good quality, but over here they were already discontinued. The I Like to Mauve It, which has the gray with like the purples, and then Dancing Green, which is a really pretty green palette. And the palette I have in my makeup memory box as a reminder of how good Essence eyeshadow can be, if they set their minds to it, is the Silver Glitter Show. And this is really fun because all the glitter falls down. And here's what the color story looks like. These are also both still in my active makeup collection. We have the Catrice Fall in Colors, If you're new here, I love this palette to pieces. I hope they bring it back again, but it was a limited edition for fall 2 years ago. And then we have the Neon Nude, and this is really pretty. I actually repurchased this. I had it, decluttered it, and then I just needed something to round out an order to get free shipping, and I decided to throw it in, and I remembered why this was such a good palette. It's essentially a neutral palette, but then with some pops of neon, which the latest eyeshadow palette release from Catrice is this guy, the Soft Peony eyeshadow palette. From this range, I used to own all of those. I have videos up where I try them, so you can have a look at that. But this is really pretty. This is the most successful I've tried in this range so far. And here's the entire range of the Pro palettes. So these are the Pro Slim. And now they do the Slim palette. So this range is new and is replacing this. So we have Safari Fever, which is really pretty, the Blooming Bliss, and the Coral Crush. My favorite that is still in my active makeup collection is Vintage Soul. I love this thing to pieces. Those maroon colors. This one is quite similar to one of the palettes I just showed you. This is Natural Spirit. The Next Gen Nudes is very similar to the Blooming Bliss I just showed you. And then we have Hint of Mint, which is really similar to the Coral palette I just showed you as well. Then we have Blushing Ocean. I sort of have these for content purposes still. Neon Earth, Desert Romance. And then we have the ones that weren't great. Peach Origin, really not good quality at all. And also this one, the Lavender Breeze. So now that we have a bit of space, we can move on to Glam Shop. They are a Polish indie brand, which I adore. They do some really lovely things when it comes to eyeshadow. Coco Sanka has been one of my favorites for some time, but I definitely now prefer the Cimna Mocha, which is a bit lighter, but they do some really good cool tones, as you can see. Their palettes are always going to be limited edition though, so it's like grab it while you can. This is their blue palette, which I think rivals the one I've just shown you from BH Cosmetics. The Very Perry is really pretty, but I have a ColourPop palette that I like better than I do this for what it does. And I have the Fioletti to complement the Very Perry. This was on sale. And then this translates to Nice Weeds, which is one of my favorite Glam Shop palettes. I love these grungy greens with the warmer yellows. And another green palette, the Zielone, I don't know. I think it's like citrus fruit, sort of, like whatever. I don't speak Polish. People in the comments always help me out. So I now know that this is the Sweet and Sour palette. Thank you guys. Here's what that looks like. This shade keeps crumbling, so it keeps getting a little bit messy, but this is like some nice neutrals with a lot of pops of color and some actual neons in here as well. And then we have the Cashmere, which is another one that I really, really adore. This is such a stunning palette. So many great shades in here, but again, pretty light. Which brings me to my ColourPop palettes. If you're familiar with my collection, you know that I like reorganizing my ColourPop palettes. I have lots of videos, which I'll link in the description box down below, of how I reorganize my eyeshadow palettes, if that's something you're wondering. I will, as I'm showing you these, show the image of what the palette that the packaging is for, is what it actually looked like. I will like pop it up on the screen. So I have the Sprinkle a Little Magic, a combination of the Off Quartz and the Sprinkle a Little Magic. Remember that I said I had a palette from ColourPop that was similar to the Very Perry. This is the Lavish. I know not everybody loved it, but I really enjoy mine. These are my kind of shades. These grayish purples into blues are really, really stunning for me. In the Dream Street packaging, I've kept 3 shades from Dream Street and 9 shades from the High Tide, which again, I've repurposed the packaging for, as you'll see in a minute. But this way, I have an all teal palette. The Flutterby is now my purple palette, so these are an assortment of different purples that I had from different ColourPop palettes. Then the Menage a Moi, this together with the Making Mauves, which you see here, I actually rearranged to fit a lot of the mauve tones that I had from the brand. One that is intact and one of my favorites from the brand is the Pretty Please. This is really, really stunning. I love how we get different textures in here and loads of different things to play with. And then we have the Troublemaker, which is another one that's not been meddled with. I really enjoy this color story. It's like a really good grungy neutral. And finally, the Cloud 9 in this larger style with the 12 pans. Really love this one as well. You get a holographic shade in there and some really nice soft neutrals. Then we have a lot of the 9 pans. The Making Mauves, like I said, also been rearranged. These are like the darker tones. Of the 2 mauve tones, I use this one the most. Then I have the Baroque. This I didn't change. This is a bit of a one-trick pony, but I still really enjoy this. Another one that I didn't change, the That's Taupe. Really, really stunning, really good neutral palette. Very similar to Coco Sanka by Glam Shop. And the Deja Brew from ColourPop. I would love to be able to rearrange this together with the That's Taupe and make like my perfect neutral palette. But apparently these are glued in, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge, and this plastic feels very thin, which is why I would want to reorganize this, because I prefer the cardboard packaging from ColourPop over their plastic packaging, 100%. Said I had the High Tide somewhere. Here it is. It has the Aha Honey in. I did replace all of the pressed glitters. The Cherry Crush is the conglomeration of 4 different purpley, pinky, reddish tone palettes I have. The Mandalorian the Child, really, really pretty green tones in here, and I made it more green with a couple of shades from the Just My Luck. The Smoke Show or Blowing Smoke is one that I'm considering decluttering next time I declutter my eyeshadow palette collection. I just have a lot of these grayish black color stories now, and I have them in better quality than this is. And the Blush Crush doesn't have any Blush Crush in, because these are 9 shades from the Stone Cold Fox that I couldn't live without. Again, do I still need to keep this? Maybe I'll pull the pans but keep the packaging. And then the Petals on Point, which is really nice, light, very ethereal. I really enjoy this color story as well. I just wish these 2 green tones showed up on me a little bit better. Next up are some like miscellaneous larger things that are living in the back of this drawer. I was gifted this palette from a subscriber as well. This is the Sugar Pill 10th Anniversary palette. Really, really pretty, very soft yet colorful. Another palette I got to round out an order to get free shipping is the Rude Cosmetics The Roaring 20s Excessive palette. I had never tried Rude before, and I just thought it could be a fun way to try a new to me brand. This is very sort of Huda Beauty coded, however, this is not a straight up dupe. So while this is pretty, I don't think this will be around in my collection for a long time. One that I feel I should declutter, but I just can't because it's such a good color story. This was the first Beauty Bay palette I tried, and as I already mentioned, I don't love their formula. But this color story of the Book of Magic is just so, so good. And I mentioned I have the big guy as well, so here's the larger smoky palette from Beauty Bay. I was like, you know what, I'll just commit. I'll take one for the team and try this out as well, because some of my subscribers had indicated that they were interested in hearing my thoughts. Here we have a nice little cubby. This is 2 brands. We have Juvia's Place and we have Kaleidos. This is the off quartz that I mentioned having reorganized. I used to have the big palettes for the Magic and the Masquerade from Juvia's Place, and there just weren't enough shades there to warrant keeping the entire palette. So instead, I emptied out some ColourPop pans and just repressed them. This one got messy, so that's why the packaging is super messy, but how fun is this color story? I really love this. I still have one of the 6 pans. I used to have more, but this is the only one I've kept around, the Mauves, which is really mainly due to this. This is one of my favorite warm tone palette, the Saharan by GVS. Very nice spicy shades. I did put the red in. There is officially a peach in here. One of my favorites from the brand is the Nomad. This is still available, I know for a fact, so this is such a good one with fall around the corner. This is just fall in a palette. Another really, really good warm toned color story. I love warm tones with a pop of blue. The Tribe from Juvia's Place, one that I still adore till this day. I need to reach for this again. A really nice pastel offering from Juvia's Place is the Deuce. And then we have the Festival. And this one, again, I'm a little bit on the fence whether this still warrants staying around my collection. And then I just have a bunch of these little 4 pans from Kaleidos. This is what they're currently doing. This is the Cold Brew, which is the brown toned one. We have Black Jasmine, which is that gray with a black. This is the Glowing Iris. Really, really nice vibrant periwinkle shades. And then we also have Flowing Haze, which is a bit more muted and grungy. And then my favorites are Venus Trap, and Twilight Rush. The unicorn of unicorns, the Kaleidos Club Nebula with Angelica Nykvist. This was very limited edition, and I'm so glad I got my hands on it. I go back to this all the time. I love this color story. And these are my Futurism palettes. And I did reorganize the Futurism one, the Sci-Fi Greens. So I took the shades from the Wilderness palette that I had from Beauty Bay, and I repressed them into here. I did keep some. I took the Vibrant Pink from the VR Neons and put it in here. This is the Cyber Bronze. And here we have the Astro Pink. I took the Shimmering Black out and kept the black from the Sci-Fi Greens in here. My favorite of the original lineup is the Futurism 5. This is the Electro Turquoise. And then we have Sashimi City, which is a really nice sort of like peachy neutral palette. And then we have Lunar Lavender, which is a really pretty lavender palette. Next up are my 9 pans from Huda Beauty. One of the first ones I think I got is the Nude Light Obsession. Here's what that palette looks like. And I like combining it with the Sand Haze because this has some of the mattes that I like. And then I also like to sometimes pull in my Nude Rich Obsessions to complement them because again, I like these sort of like berry tones it almost has. But I also like to combine the Nude Rich with the Chocolate Browns, which has more like the orange sort of vibe. I have the Wild Jaguar, but I realized when I was filming a recent video with all of my Huda Beauty palettes that this is so similar to what I have going on in the Pretty Grunge. We have the Cocky Haze, which is just not as cocky as everybody wanted it to be, which is why I combine it with the Emerald Obsessions. Like these shades at the bottom go really well with the Cocky Haze, as I do with the Purple Haze. But I like pulling in some of the Pastel Lilac, which again has some really pretty purples in. And here we have a nice flat lay of some of the more miscellaneous things that are in this drawer. This is the MUA Illusionist, a really pretty cool tone palette. Really nice intense shimmers in here, some good mattes. For how much this goes for, this is absolutely stunning. The most stunning packaging I have anywhere in my collection. This is the LA Splash Classic Horror Palette. And we have the zombie ladies on the front, the zombie ladies on the back, and then we have the holographic inner like inlay, which I just love. It's just not the kind of rainbow color story I go for anymore, but it's such a good one and I never want to get rid of this. Next up is this palette. This is the Martina Cosmetics Mini Tchoing. I hope that's how I pronounce it correctly. This is really beautiful. I put it in my August palette review video, which I didn't manage to film because I was ill and I just haven't even managed to try all of those palettes for you. So I will be rolling all of my thoughts about this palette into my September review instead. This is the Makeup by Lisa Raven's Castle palette. I think they have changed names though, because the last time I googled them, I found a different website that this was still on. This is a small indie brand from the Isle of Wight, and this is what that color story looks like. This an oldie but a goodie, also from the Makeup Memory box. This is the Sleek Nude Collection Au Naturel. The only sleek palette I still have. I wanted to keep one around to have it as a memory. These two palettes were sent to me by the brand in PR, just being fully transparent here. This is the What's Up Beauty Dragon Eye palette. Really pretty with some lovely duochromes in here. And then I also have the Geodes, which they also were kind enough to send my way. And this is a really pretty neutral palette with some like pinky purples to it. I really enjoy these. This was again sent to me by a subscriber in the same package. This is the Moira Endless Moonlight, and she knows me so well because here we have a beautiful neutral color story with these warmer tones at the top, the cooler tones here. I just didn't really get the shimmer and matte combinations that I would want to have in a palette like this, so that set it back a little bit for me, and I don't love how bulky this is. The Zoeva Precious palette, this I just really like the look of. I love my Zoeva palettes. We have a lot more Zoeva coming up in part 2 of this video, let me tell you. We have the Nabla Soul Blooming palette, also stunning. One of the only full-size Nabla palettes I still have in my collection. This is like peachy tones with periwinkles. And we have some indie brands left, you could say. This is Game Beauty's Adventure, Fantasy, and Victory palette. But the Adventure palette lives in a makeup memory box because as beautiful as it is, I don't really reach for this kind of color story. I just really enjoy the packaging. Same for the Fantasy palette. Not really my vibe, with a lot of blue and very pastel leaning. I do still have the Victory palette that I go back to from time to time because this is that warm tone with a pop of teal that I really enjoy. And here we have both of my Aether Beauty palettes. If you saw my declutter, you know that I tried decluttering this, but then as I was going through things after filming that video, I was like, oh, I can't do it. My favorite of the two was the Moonlight Crystal, so that was the one I was inclined to keep. Remember what I said about blue, green, purple palettes making an appearance in this collection video? Yes, this is another blue, green palette, purple palette that I really enjoy. If you've been with me for some time, you know I really enjoy trying K Beauty and even like some C Beauty by now as well. I have the Peri Para Hip Gray. This I bought a little bit randomly. I do really enjoy the Peri Para eyeshadow formula, but I don't think this color story is necessarily my vibe. It's just not gray. I have one of the Kaja Bento boxes as well. This is in the shade Rosewater, which has this really pretty shimmer here. These I haven't tried yet. This is by Flort, which is a C Beauty brand. This is the Flower Food Bear palette in shade 1 and 2. I don't remember the names, but I'm seeing a lot of this, like these neutral palettes with a pop of pastel blue or lilac, and I just thought this looked so cute. And this is the rest of what's in that cubby. I have the Unleasha Glitterpedia in the shade All of Lavender Fog. Really, really pretty. You can see what I like, don't you? With these like lavenders. This is a little bit more glitter heavy. I have these two from Lily by Red. This was a brand I wanted to try more by this year. We have the Cheese Plate and the Mood Keyboard in Ash Mauve. So the Cheese Plate is these really pretty yellows. And then I have Ash Mauve, which is this really pretty like cooler tone but slightly pink palette. This I believe still exists, but it looks differently now. This is by Etude. This is their Autumn Closet eyeshadow palette, and this is so, so pretty. It's very neutral, but you get like neutrals and some warmer tones and then these like greenish tones here. And something that's not necessarily my vibe, but that is good quality if you're on the cheap. This is very affordable. I think it's around €5 on YESSTYLE. It's by Pink Flash, and it's their eyeshadow palette in shade number 3, which the name starts with strawberry, but I always forget the rest of the name. But my two favorites are Romand and Cleo. So let's tackle Cleo first. We have the Over the Path. This is quite possibly the palette from Cleo that is the most like westernized, with these like darker shades. It can definitely be glammed up a little bit. Then we have the Napping Cheese, which is so, so stunning. It's a little bit more peach than the Lily by Red cheese palette you just saw. And then the first two from Cleo that I tried, this is Picnic by the Sunset, which is like warmer mauve tones with a couple of shimmers in. And then the Walking on the Cozy Alley, which is like one of the best neutral palettes I've ever tried. From Romand, I have a whole bunch of them. This is the Dreamy Lilac Garden, which is like one of my favorites, I think, if not my favorite of the entire range. This is Peony Nude Garden, which I also enjoy, but it's very similar to the other one. We have Cheeky Cheeky Garden, which this was really, really nice. I love these like pinks that it has, and then it has some like neutrally shades. It's the Fog Garden, which is like neutral and with some cool tones in, and these are like a little bit more like purpley as well. And I think one of my favorites as well, this is Mahogany Garden, which I hadn't expected, but I was on a little bit of a warm toned craze earlier this year, and this is one of the things I've tried and I really enjoy this. We have my Viseart collection in this little cubby. So here's everything by Viseart. I definitely have my favorites here. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know how much I love these. We have the Petit Four in Lavande, which is really pretty lighter purples. We have the Lilas, which is one of my favorites, with these like neutrals, a little bit more taupe leaning. Violetta, which is grungy for Viseart. Then we have Lila 2, which is a little bit more mauve leaning with some peaches. We have the Charmeuse, the original Cashmere, which is quite possibly one of my all-time favorite palettes, and the Vespertine, which is very muted, a little bit mid-tone for my liking. But this is the Violette Étendue, which is another one of my favorites. One that was less successful for me, but I keep it around because I don't have that many all matte palettes. This is the Petite Cool Mattes. The Midsummer, so these are some of the Petite Pros. And we have the Petite Pro 3, which is getting a little hard to find. This is the Paris Étoile, which, like, if you've never seen these before, they have the skyline of the city they represent on the back. And here is what that looks like. We have San Francisco, which it's a little bit bigger on this one. And this is like that warm tone neutral with a pop of greeny, teal, blue. London Étoile, which again, it has some shades in that I love. When we talk smaller palettes, we also need to talk about more luxury brands, I think. This Dior palette is in a makeup memory box, mainly because of the packaging. Because this slides open and then the mirror pops up. So the color story is really nothing special. You just get these like khaki green shades. I've always loved that one, but this is so old. The newest acquisition of this eyeshadow palette collection is this Dior Backstage eye palette. This is one I have been eyeing up for months, and I finally bit the bullet on the Smoky Essentials because I wanted to test out the consistency of this quality because I love the Silver Essentials. I bought this last year and I spotted this online and was like, that looks like something I might like. And then I saw it in real life and I was like, yep. So I sat down to really quickly do some swatches with this before filming this video so I could like show it in this video. So this is the latest acquisition. I haven't even shown you this in a haul. Let's talk the Silver Essentials then. As I already mentioned, I really enjoy this. That's why I got the other one, but these are so expensive. Not that I don't have anything else by Dior, because I do. These were limited edition for Christmas. This is the, ooh, here is Black Knight. And then we have House of Dreams. I have two of these M Cosmetics palettes. Rodin, Divine Skies. This is Saturn's Return. And this is supposed to be the cool toned one, but I don't find it that cool tones. And then I have three of these Lisa Eldridge palettes. I now have all three of the ones that I have been eyeing up. So the first one I tried was Vega. Here's what Vega looks like, and I really enjoy this formula. I think it's one of the best things that Lisa Eldridge has done besides her lipsticks. Sorcery, which is all jewel tones and all shimmer. This is Myth. And I think this is my least favorite. I didn't feel the quality was as consistent as with the other two. And then here off to the side, I have my two Glossier monochromes. I have Jute, I have Mist, which is the mauve tone. Another thing I enjoy, but I seem to be like the only person, are the Fenty Snap Shadows. Are these still around? I don't even know. This is Cool Neutrals. Yes, Cool Neutrals. Here's what that looks like. Smoky. Finally in here, we have my two Victoria Beckham palettes. I have the Smoky Eye Brick in Tuxedo and in Royal. So this is the last bit of palettes from drawer number 1, and as you can see, it's like miscellaneous small things from high-end to drugstore. So let's just run through it. Right here at the front, I have these bits that I got from Isadora when I was traveling this summer. Rockstar, I think these were all discontinued. Like they're all like older products. That's why they were in this store. But Crystal Mauve, Palm Beach, Vintage Velvet. Here's my little Kiko family that I have now. I didn't used to have this many Kiko palettes, but this year I really got into them. So this is from their Holiday Premiere collection. This was limited edition for Christmas last year. This is Stellar Love. This is Under the Starry Sky, and mine is very, very broken, and it keeps cracking, and the brown is super messy. And then the two that are actually my favorite are from their regular range. This is the Glamour Multi-Finish in shade 5, which is like gray tones with a pop of blue, and number 6, which is cooler tones with green and gold. Then I have my little Nabla Cutie family. I still have all of these, but I keep most of them in a makeup memory box. This is the only one I still actively use. This is the Analog, and it's one of my favorite warm tone palettes in my entire collection. We have Nude, very pretty. The Coral, Metropolitan, which this shade I've always loved. The Berry, Midnight, and Platinum. Pat McGrath that I keep in the boxes so that I can still tell which palette is which. This is from the same collection. These are the Luxe Quads from the Celestial Divinity collection. This is my favorite of the three. This is Interstellar Icon. We have Fleur Fantasia and Risque Rose. Over here we have two of the Blitz Astral Quads. This is in Nocturnal Nirvana. This was my first ever Pat McGrath palette. And Ritualistic Rose. Finally, I think one of my favorite Pat McGrath things, I always get the name wrong, so this is the Venus in Fleurs Luxe Quad in Voyeuristic Vixen. I always want to call it the Fleur Vixen. And then in here we just have loads of like small things. I have another e.l.f. palette in here. This was limited edition. This is the Celestial Winter. And I have these two things from Eveline Cosmetics. This is a Polish drugstore brand. This is the shade Twilight. And we have Essential Rose. These were nothing special. And I told you this would be random because LH Cosmetics is not affordable at all. These are quite expensive and they swatch terribly, but they look beautiful with brushes. So the first one I tried was Daybreak, which is like pastely things with like a pop of gray. And we have Aim Higher, which is my favorite of the two. I have 4 of these 5 pans from MUA, so now we go to the completely different end of the spectrum when it comes to price point. We have Neutral Wanderlust, Desert Bloom, Enchantment, and Andromeda Skies. This is the Essence Cool Nude Edition. This is a really lovely palette from Essence. Some Zoeva, these are their quads that they're currently doing. This is the Velvet Love range. Let me see. We have my favorite here. This is Emerald Green Eyes. Beautiful Bright Eyes. This is very Pillow Talk-esque from Charlotte Tilbury. And Glorious Golden Eyes. And finally in here, I just have 3 of my Natasha Denona 5 pans in Mini Love, Mini Zendo, and Mini Retro. I think this one is my favorite. And here is drawer number 2 that we're going to go through. These are all of my like high-end like Sephora brands, if you would like to call them that, and also bigger palettes, as well as all of my indie brands that you haven't seen so far. So let me get this little stack out of the way first because I don't want to knock these over. 4 of these larger palettes from Huda Beauty. This is the Desert Dusk, which is a really good warm tone palette. And why was this discontinued again? Can anyone explain this to me? Because I love mine. I already mentioned the Pretty Grunge and it being a great alternative to the Wild Jaguar, so this is also better quality, I feel. The Mercury Retrograde, which has some really pretty pops of color and some rosy tones. I really like it for that reason. And I think my favorite Huda Beauty palette, the Rose Quartz. This is me in a palette. And then we have my full-size Natasha Denona collection. And here again, like with ColourPop, I have rearranged quite a few of my Natasha Denona palettes. So I'll just pop an image up on the screen for those of you who don't know what these palettes look like originally. Biba palette is one that was sent to me by a subscriber. Really, really lovely. I do enjoy the formula, but you can tell this is an older palette by Natasha Denona. Another oldie but a goodie is the Gold palette. I don't need the golden because there's 9 shades in this palette. that are in that golden palette, so there's too much overlap. Retro Glam, I turned into a very cool tone palette, which this is very much me in a palette. We have the Glam palette, and I turned it into this like mauve color story almost. I know there are shades in here from the retro, and that this is the multi-chrome from the My Dreams. Then my favorite, I think, from Natasha Denona, the I Need a Nude. This is very good for me. This is almost perfection. Then the original retro palette, I turned into like a more warmer mauve tone palette. Really pretty. And then the My Dream, I turned into the warm tone palette with all of the warm tone shades I had in these palettes. And finally, I have the Xenon. So this is another reason why I'm like, I can get rid of that ColourPop palette because I feel that this can do what the ColourPop Smoke Show can do. These are my Sydney Grace palettes that I have. I mainly have singles by the brand. I love them for that. So I have the Heaven on Earth, which I really enjoy. You get some blues and greens in here, really stunning. But my favorite from the brand has to be the Love's Journey. This was sent to me by a friend of mine. She was like, I had an extra one, so you can have it. And then I have the 3 Temptalia collab, in case you didn't know. If you put them together, they make a little picture. Radiant Reflection, which is like jewel tones. This is the On the Horizon. And then we have the Quintessence. I believe this is in the deep shade and the other 2 are in the light. All of my Urban Decay palettes. I threw a couple on top that I had elsewhere. This is currently the only thing that is still in my active makeup collection. It's the Naked 2, but this is another one that I've reorganized, and I use the hairdryer to loosen up the glue, take the shades out, and put it together with the Naked 3 that I had. These are my old palettes. You can see here, I've got 2 of these pristine in the box. That's why I didn't mind experimenting with this. And I made my perfect cool tone color story, so I'm not mad about this. But let's then start here. I'm not going to take them out the box. Like, I just checked to see if these were okay when they arrived, and I checked the batch numbers to know whether they were still okay. I bought the Naked 2 when it was discontinued. Naked 3 is still available. So those are all of the Naked palettes in my possession. I don't have that Metal Mania palette. That's the only one I'm missing. So let's breeze through this because this is way too much. Naked 1, original, from 2010. This thing is 14 years old. And then, of course, at some point we got the Naked Reloaded, which was far more peachy orange than the original Naked. This is the last one I got. This is the Naked Cyber. And they just kept doing peach tones in these, and that's why I stopped buying them. As much as I love the brand, if you're gonna continue doing peach tones in all of your palettes, no. The Ultraviolet with peach tones. I have Naked Cherry, which has peach tones. Naked Heat. The Naked Wild West. Another one that I hope they bring back at some point, the Naked Smoky. And then the Naked Honey, which is, again, like, as far as warm tones go, this is one of my favorite color stories ever. So what else is in here? This is super old. This is one of the first Urban Decay eyeshadow palettes I ever bought. It's the Deluxe Shadow Box. This came out in like 2008 or something. Oh, nostalgia. Then the one that everybody loved, the Born to Run. And then I have this guy, the Back Talk, with face palettes here and eyeshadows here. The Naked Ultimate Basics, an all matte palette. Speaking of Naked Basics palettes, the reason why these were retired is because they have the rubberized packaging and that gets sticky after a while. I have another one of those from Urban Decay that does that. So here's the Naked Basics 2. Here is the original Naked Basics. And I did invest in the Naked 3 Mini, which, you know, is pretty. Did I need it at the time? No, but that was still when I was like, in my brain, I was still collecting Urban Decay. What was this called again? The Heavy Metals palette, I believe? It does have a mirror in the middle, but really nice jewel tones and shimmers. I have one of the shadow boxes, the Alice in Wonderland one, and here is what that looks like. The Full Spectrum, the first ever rainbow palette I ever bought. That was so disappointing to so many people. And then the Deluxe, no, this was the 15th anniversary palette, I think, or 10th anniversary. I don't remember. It turns into a jewelry case if you take out the inlay. The After Dark palette, really, really pretty color story. See, this I would still buy from the brand if they came out with this. And then we have 4 Vice palettes. Let me see if I still remember. I think this is the last one I got. This is Vice 4. Here is the Vice 3. This has a story attached. And then we have the Vice 2. I love this as well, but these aren't like color stories. They are colors, but they're not color stories. And then this is another one of the sticky ones. It feels so terrible. This is the first Vice palette. So now that's out of the way, we can go through this cubby. This is the only organizer I keep in this drawer. Most of these palettes can stand upright pretty easily on their own accord, so I don't need too many organizers. We have some Lime Crime in here. We have the original Venus XL, which I love these berry tones. Venus XL 2, which is the Natasha Denona retro glam that everybody wanted to have, but everybody ignored this because the inside wasn't like the outside. And here are the other Lime Crime palettes. The Venus 3, the Prelude Chroma, and the Immortalis. Also in here is Tarte, and I have one of their like not so standard palettes. This is the High Tides and Good Vibes with the little turtle guy and the water inside. This is in a makeup memory box, but this is a stunning palette. It's really, really good. I think this is a really good palette by Tarte. And then I just have my little Tartelette family. We have the original In Bloom. Really, really good basic neutral palette till this day. I think this is stunning. The Toasted, which is one of my favorite warm tone palettes in my collection. The Juicy is really nice. It is another palette that I wanted to go back to because in my brain, this looks exactly what I want nowadays, with those warm tones, but it's also neutral and it's got the pinks, but I also know that this can make me look a little sickly. And finally, we have the Energy palette in here, which has those like pops of purple in there too. 3 palettes that have a similar size to all of these, but that are by different brands. We have Persona, the Identity 2. Lovely like greens, golds, a little bit like jewel tone, but muted. And the Identity 1, which is another great neutral palette. And Makeup by Mario, Ethereal Eyes. Look at how stunning. Here is my little menagerie family. So I have the Feral, I never know how to pronounce it, but this is one of my favorite colorful eyeshadow palettes. I saw on the website that they're going to be discontinuing this, so grab it while you can. We have Flight Club, which I've also reorganized. Again, original color story will be up on the screen. Pastel Pup, the Whale Song palette, the Whale Song, and finally, the Dragon Child from when they were makeup monsters. And then also in here are Shroud Cosmetics and Misha Lu. So this brand is no longer around, but I still love the 2 palettes I have, so I keep them around. This is the Fawn and the Witchcraft, which is a great grunge toned color story. We have Moonfall from Shroud. It's freaking bats. And these combine really well. Again, with Shroud, I feel the color stories don't really come together for me by itself. Creepy Cute, and the Arcana. Finally in this cubby are all of my Gloss Gods palettes. This is the first Gal on Jupiter, Smoke and Mirrors, New Neutrals, which I dropped, so it's very messy, Gal on the Moon, Dancing in the Sky, The Color of Rain, and Let's Get Nude. This is a Swedish-based indie brand. They are one of my recent loves. I really enjoy them. The Let's Get Nude was also in my August review. This is one of the ones that I didn't manage to put on my face because I was ill. Some more indie brands then. We have Blend Bunny, we have Cosmic Brushes, we have Glaminatrix, Odin's Eye, and one random one, the Slush palette from September Rose. This is my favorite rainbow color story, you could say. I've decluttered pretty much all of my other ones because this is just Really, really good for my fair skin. Now, we all know about my love-hate relationship with Odin's Eye by now, so I'm just going to breeze through these. The Jewels and Gem, I really love their color stories. They do so many good things. I just wish I got on with their shimmer formula a bit better. My favorite from the brand is the original Solomona. It needs to be this way around, which looks like this. The Odin's Eye and Angelica Nyqvist Hella palette. The Christmas palettes that they did, the Christmas Eve, and Merry Christmas. And finally, by Odin's Eye, the Norns. And I still have the old packaging with the round pans, but now they do it in the same pans as the other palettes. I have 3 palettes from Glaminatrix. The Nocturnal is one that I bought to try the brand. But because I wanted to try a bit more by them, I bought the Sugar and Spice, and this was really successful for me. It's got like cooler tone neutrals, pastels, and multi-chromes. And the Barely Basics was sent to me by Monolith in PR, so thank you to Monolith for sending this to me. By the way, if you're in the EU and you want indie brands, check Monolith because they do loads of things. And I have a code with them that is valid until September 1st, so that will be in the description box down below in case you're interested. We have the Barely Basics here. This is their newest palette, which I'm so glad they sent me because this is very much up my street. Then we get to Blend Bunny. Blend Bunny is a brand that I really enjoy the formula of. They do some really stunning mattes and shimmers. I just wish they did more shimmers in their palettes, and their color stories aren't always the best, but I keep trying them to sort of find the perfect one. So what I'm talking about with it not being perfect is especially the Dollhouse. As much as I like this in theory, it didn't quite work for me the way I had hoped when I bought it. So my favorite so far from the brand has been the Surge, because I think this is quite unique in my collection. It is essentially like rainbow-esque, but without it being primary colors. The lure was a little bit disappointing to me because I do love a blue, green, purple palette, as we'll see, but I definitely felt that some of the jumps between some of the shades were not great on me. But then, of course, was it June, they came out with this. I bought it when it became available through Monolith. I did pay this with my own money, in case you're wondering, and I can't wait to try it. And finally in this section are my 4 by now Cosmic Brushes palettes. So it all started with the Serenity for me. This was, of course, incredibly hyped up. I love this color story. It's really nice, but my main issue was not enough shimmers. So when they did the Winter Wonderland and it had my name written all over it, and it had more shimmers, I knew I'd like it. And this is one of my favorite colorful palettes. It has blues, greens, and purples. It's got a couple of multi-chromes in. This is incredibly stunning. I really love it. So when this summer came around and they announced the release of the neutrals and the cool trolls, I had to try it. I just do. Again, these are going to be reviewed for you in September or October. I don't remember exactly when, but here is what the neutrals look like. And then we have the cool trolls. Next up is Ensley Rain and Fantasy Cosmetica. Fantasy Cosmetica is by far one of my favorite indie brands. Part of me wants to be a completionist and get them all. I'm missing the Bard and the Sorcerer palette from the 9 pans, and then they came out with a 12 pan this summer. So again, something I have yet to review. This is the Cradled in Ice. Here's the Druid, which is really pretty. I love the Rogue. If you get just one Fantasy Cosmetica palette, make it this one. Fighter, which is their take on a neutral. The Warlock, which looks very bright, colorful, and in your face, but it's a lot more workable than you might expect. And a lovely purple-blue palette, the Wizard. And Ensley Rain, here again, I have some things that I've purchased myself through Monolith, which is these 2. And one that was very kindly sent to me by that web shop. So again, if you're in Europe, try them out. They make indie palettes so much more accessible, I find. So here's the Cosmic Dreamer. Not one that was on my radar per se, but they offered it to me, and then I looked at it again. I was like, it has some really stunning shades. And now that I have it in and I've swatched it, I'm like, yep. This is a color story that I really like. I just don't really like the artwork. My favorite of the three that I've tried so far is the Lens of Enchantment. This is like really pretty blue, green, purple, pastels all the way to deep shades. Such a well-balanced palette, and I love the formula in here. And the Cold Moon, which I hoped was going to be my favorite, I didn't love, mainly because it has flakies in, and I'm not a huge fan of flaky shimmers like these ones over here. I like the shimmers we get on this side of the palette a lot better. But yeah, essentially it is a great cool tone color story, of course. You get a matte and a shimmer for every shade. The next section is Unearthly Cosmetics, Clarity Cosmetics, a bit of Pat McGrath Motherships, and then over here I have some Nomad. I have the Clarity Cosmetics Bloom palette. I really wanted to try this brand because I had never tried them before. And I think if you want something dark, deep, grungy, or if you have deep skin, check out Clarity Cosmetics because they do some really good things. This was a bit too dark for me though. So I ended up preferring the Deadly Rose palette. This is just so much better for me. I really like how this is like light enough to make it work for someone with my fair skin. But it's also deep, dark, and grungy, and just really yummy. I really enjoyed the look I did with this. Speaking of weird formulas, I have some Unearthly here. The only palette I've tried from their more recent offerings is the Dreamer palette, because everybody has been telling me that their new formula is like the next best thing since sliced bread. I disagree, but I do really enjoy this color story. I prefer their older formula though. These are sometimes hard to find though, or they were discontinued. Mine is called the Serendipity. They turned it into the Poison Apple. Mine is just the old style from back when they were Alien Cosmetics, but I do really enjoy both the color story and the formula. Same for the Fairy Frolic. This is really good. It's like a really good fall color story. Fall Magic, which they redid, and it's now 2 palettes instead of 1, but I still really enjoy mine. I think this is my favorite Unearthly palette I have. I have the Lore, and this is why I'm thinking I can declutter the Festival palette from Juvia's Place that you saw earlier in the video, because I feel this does a very similar thing. And for the super bright moments in my life, I have the Strawberry Milkshake. These are my Pat McGrath Motherships. I've definitely decluttered some of these over time because some of them weren't perfect for me. I think my favorite Mothership is still this guy, the very first one, Subliminal Mothership 1. This is an amazing cool tone color story. I don't know if you can tell. The last one I bought is the Moonlit Seduction, and this is another great take on a neutral palette for me. I've kept this over the Vine Rose 1, because that was just really warm toned, and I feel this has some more cooler tones in, so that's why it works better for me. And similarly, between the Utopian Dream and the Divine Rose 2, I kept this one. I felt they were too similar, but if I want to go for that peachy pink moment that Pat McGrath is doing so often, this is my version of that. And another brand I keep boxes for because their boxes really add to the experience, that's Nomad. This is the Land of Fire and Ice. This is their Iceland palette. This was discontinued, but I love that the inside is like the outside of a volcano or like Iceland, and this is the inside of all the volcanic activity that you have on the island. Really nice, colorful yet muted. You do get some warm tones, but overall it's a pretty cool tone palette and colorful. This way you can see the animals of the Monteverde Cloud Forest. And this way, they've been camouflaged. I just love it. This was actually part of a giveaway that I won on their website, or actually their Instagram. So lots of greens in here, really nice, colorful again. Next up, we have the Ghost Town USA, and if you've been watching this entire video, I do want to shout out my giveaway that I started at the start of the month. Today, this video goes live, is your final day to enter, so if you haven't done so yet, make a flat lay picture of your eyeshadow palette collection to enter the giveaway, and you can win one of the Ghost Town USA eyeshadow palettes. And this is one of my favorites from the brand. I love the like neutral yet grungy color story this has, yet it's still very muted and great for fair skin. We have the Verona palette, Amore e Morte, which opens like a little book, like so. pinks and reds, and then these really nice grungy color stories. And even though these are no longer available at the minute, the Haunted Europe and also the Ghost Town USA are going to be brought back for Halloween this year. I think this should be available from September onwards. They will have only limited quantities of the Haunted Europe left though. And this was like one of my original favorites from this brand. This is what put Nomad for me on the map for me. And I have always loved how we get a lady on one side and then it's like a skeleton that way. So always fun packaging with Nomad and really good color stories. I definitely think if you've missed out on these, definitely have a look. The next little flat lay is an overview of like one-offs. A lot of these are actually no longer part of my makeup collection because they are either in a makeup memory box or I just keep them around for video purposes. I don't really use some of these. So one of the ones that is in the makeup memory box is the Nude Tude from The Balm. I have some nostalgic memories attached to this one, but it is nothing that I want to use on my face. Similarly, with the Kat Von D Metamorphosis palette, this is such a nostalgic palette for me. And this guy, the little fun size from Sugar Pill. Such a cute packaging color story-wise, but again, I just had other pastel neon things by now that trump this for sure. Patrick Ta then, Major Dimension 2. A really stunning rosy tone palette. I just wanted to love this so much more. I think the mattes in this are amazing. If you love mattes, check out Patrick Ta because he does some really nice things. I just wasn't a fan of the shimmers. We have the Vive 90s palette. This was such a disappointment to me. It looks like a really stunning cool tone color story, but it looked like the shades didn't go onto my eyes the way they look in the pan, and the shimmers in here are quite weak. Ace Beauté Oceanic then, really stunning blue-green palette. If I go for a blue-green palette, I tend to reach for this. Eternal Eclipse from Lunar Beauty, a really stunning like neutral palette with a pop of blue. That's the way I see this. And finally, Bella Beauté Bar Smoky Glam. And the Smoky Glam palette is a stunning cool tone color story. But like with so many indie brands, I don't get the shimmers and the mattes to go together in this. Like some of the shimmers in here are so similar and we get many more mattes than we do shimmers. Next up are pretty much all of these like rectangular palettes. Those are still left. So this is the first overlay. We have some Sigma, Too Faced, Lorac, and Adept. So let's start with Too Faced at the top. This is a palette I've rearranged. I'll pop a picture up of the original color story here. But this is the Spice, Gingerbread Spice, with shades of the Sweet Peach and the original chocolate bar. So I took 3 palettes and turned it into one. My favorite has always been the white chocolate bar though. This is one of the only Too Faced color stories that I still have in my collection that is still intact. Everything else was either decluttered or rearranged. So here is the only Too Faced palette I still have. The Adept Minka was a bit of a disappointment to me. I didn't feel the shimmer quality in here was the same as the Ninhydrin that I have down here, but I do really think these are amazing colors. I just think the colors in here are so stunning that I keep it around, but it's more of a like complementary palette rather than a full-on palette I can wear by itself. The Ninhydrin, as I mentioned, had a different quality to it, and I just like this a little bit better. It's not flaky, it's not weird. I can apply it with brushes super easily, so a bit disappointed with the formula change with Adept. But it doesn't mean I don't keep trying, because they came out with the Amy Loves collab, and if we're getting such a good cool toned color story, of course I have to try it. So can't wait to see what this looked like on my eyes. I was slated to try this for you in August, and as I mentioned, I was ill, so I didn't get around to this one either. Lorac Pro 4, this is one that's still hanging around my makeup collection. Question is, do I need to keep it around? However, I think it's the purple background that throws me off of this, because if I look at these and I don't think of the purple background, I like these shades so much better. So I think it looks really bland, especially this first half of the palette, because of that dark purple background. I think if it had come in this like neutral beige background of the Lorac Pro 3, I would have liked it better. This is one of my all-time favorite neutral palettes. It just, I have so many neutral palettes that this was forgotten in my collection, so I've moved this into my makeup memory box instead. Which brings me to my little Sigma family, which is growing slow but steady. We kicked things off with the Enchanted. That was my first one. And I like this, but I like these 8 shades, and I'm not a huge fan of these 6. So that's how I use the palette. And then the new Mod, which it got purple on during my declutter this year, and I can't get it off. But this is really lovely. It's a really good rosy tone palette. It's just a bit dark for me. And I already mentioned it a couple of times. I want to take one for the team with this one, the Cool Neutrals, which is not that cool toned, save for these 6 shades. Maybe it could be cool toned on people with a warm skin tone for some people, but this is going to be super spicy on me, I just know. But I love that you get a matte and a shimmer for like every combo, so you can do 2 shades together, you can do more shades together. Another one that I'm going to be reviewing for you really, really soon. And here is what's left of my ABH collection. I used to have all of these rectangular palettes that came out, save for the Emrazy, but I took 6 of my ABH palettes and condensed them into 2. I made a warm tone palette and I made a cool tone palette. So my Jackie Aina now looks like this. Yes, it's messy because these keep like smudging on me. Apparently these spaces aren't perfectly square, which I didn't know until I put them, like glued them back in, you could say. So some of these keep being fragile and cracking a little bit. And then the Sultry has some, like, for instance, the berry tones from the Mono Renaissance. I know that green is from the Prism. I think this is that like blue-brown shade from the Jackie Aina that was in there originally. And then a couple of really nice like neutral shades that I knew I wanted to keep. I've never changed around the Carly Bible though. That one I like because it has cool tones and warm tones all in one palette, so you just get a row of each and you can pick. The Soft Glam, I think, is one of my favorite warm tone palettes in my collection as well. I just really like these shades. Very beat up by now, my Subculture palette, but I still love mine. I love pairing this with multi-chromes in the fall time. And the Nouveau, which I've repressed several times because some of these shades keep cracking on me ever since I dropped it. But yeah, that's what mine looks like right now. I still like this color story too. And that brings me to Zoeva. These are all discontinued. You can no longer get these, but I still have this many because it's one of my favorite brands and I keep loving these and I keep finding new favorites in this little collection every single time. Current favorite is the Melody. This came out on top when I did a palette battle with these earlier in the year, and you can perhaps see why. Really nice neutrals, a little bit more cool tone, but also some really interesting shimmer. On Taupe was an original favorite for me from this brand, really nice cool tones, but Blanc Fusion is also a contender for a favorite because I love the yellows with the neutrals here. The Premier from Zoeva I really enjoy a little less actually. I like these 4 shades, but I kind of ignore these ones. Heritage is another stunning, more like 1930s inspired kind of palette, I feel. We have Eclectic Eyes, which again, I like these 4 shades a lot. Some of these purples are nice, but I don't necessarily love the warmth that we get down at the bottom. The IC is a little bit more like jewel tone here. It's got some interesting shimmers in for sure, but also not a huge favorite. Together We Grow is one of the neutral palettes they came out with when they started redoing their line, and I really do enjoy this. Again, that concept that Sigma also does with a matte and a shimmer, and we get like neutral tones, we get warmer tones, and then we get 2 cool tones towards the end. The palette that had 2016 YouTube in a chokehold at some point, the Cocoa Blend. I still like this. But as far as warm tone palette goes, the Caramel Melange is such a good one. And Spice of Life has one of my favorite shades from Zoeva. It's this one. It's the reason I keep the palette. I present to you the final brand of this palette collection video. Here are my Melt palettes. I have one of their limited edition palettes. This is from the Beetlejuice collection. This is the Waiting Room palette. And this is one that I think, because I just feel I have plenty of gray tones with reds by now, so I don't think I necessarily need to keep this. Sadly discontinued, and one of my favorites, the Mary Jane. I love this thing to pieces. Yes, it's messy, it's flaky, but I don't mind. I think this is a beautiful color story. the Melt Muerte, which by now you can still get your hands on, I believe, ever since they brought it back, but I just love this. It's got some bright shade, and it has those really lovely deep tones here in the middle. Gemini 1, which is really, really lovely here as well. I got mine a little later, so mine never had any issues with the quality. Which was followed up by Gemini 2, which actually a friend of mine bought for me. She had an extra one, and I was like, okay, I'll take it off your hands, because this is too warm toned for it to really be on my radar as like a palette I would want to put this much money towards. So if I hadn't gotten this for my friend, I probably wouldn't own it. Next up we have Millennial Pinks. This is a really pink toned color story. If I go for pink, this is actually one of the very few that I feel works for me. Here we have the Blueprint palette, which is warmer tone neutrals with a pop of blue, done to perfection. And then a palette that I've always listed as one of my favorites, and it still is, but I can no longer find this anywhere. The She's in Parties, one of the best mauve tone color stories on the planet. I'm sorry if you missed out. And then we have Smoke Sessions number 1, which looks like this. And then the same friend who got me the Gemini 2 got me the Smoke Sessions 2. So very grateful to get to try this. This is again on a review pile for the next couple of months. Wow, that's it. Those are all of the eyeshadow palettes in my collection that I have currently. I didn't count, maybe I should, and I'll pop it up on the screen here, how many I actually have. But my eyeshadow palette collection is forever evolving and changing, and yeah, I definitely think I have a good array here. I have things I can go back to, things to compare things to, and I definitely see this as like an encyclopedia for my channel as well. So that's why there's so much here, but I do really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. This does mean that eyeshadow palette month is over. I know, I'm sad as well, but it was quite the endeavor to try and post every single day. That was something I had never done before. So I'm also glad it's over. But yeah, I will be back with new content very, very soon. I always film 4 videos a week. On Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays is when I post on this channel. On Wednesday, there is a video on my second channel, which is linked down below. And I normally also post reviews over on the blog. Every single day there are no videos going live. So you can join me every day somewhere if you want, but you're gonna have to divide your attention between 3 different platforms. So I hope that's okay. So thank you so very much for joining me. Thumbs up this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more by me. I make several videos every single week, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye bye.